Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Euston Square. Great to see so many faces in the room, some old faces, some new faces, so we've got a fantastic mix today. We're starting on time. We've got a lot to get through today, so I'm not going to dwell too much and before we move into the main part of the sessions. Before we do start, though, just to point out, there is no fire drill planned for this morning, so if the alarm does go off, then please stand behind me, obviously, and follow me through that door there as fast as you can. And secondly, I know we all live in a mobile-enabled world, and we can't keep away from our emails for less than a couple of minutes, but if you could just flick those things to silent or even turn them off and be liberated for an hour or two, then that would be much appreciated. Thank you. Right. 13th time we've done this, so hopefully we're starting to get things reasonably smooth now. And I hope that you have a pretty good day with us. As I said, there's a lot of content to go through. But I think there's plenty to keep you excited, plenty to keep you interested. And the trick to this is that you're all kind of happy and smiling now. And when you leave at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, we need to make sure that you're still smiling then. So that's quite a challenge for us, but we'll give it our best shot. You've seen the agenda, there's lots on it, and I've got about 10 minutes to give you a very quick review of what's happened at Union Square in the last 12 months, which for anyone at Union Square knows that's challenging for me. So I've got to talk either quickly or not give you too much content. But we're around all day. If you've got any questions at all, particularly for me, grab me at one of the breaks or afterwards at lunchtime. More than happy to talk about anything you like. So please feel free to do that, or to any of my colleagues. Most of them can be identified by the slightly different badge to what you're wearing yourselves. Okay, some key numbers for you, just to give you a bit of a feel for what's happened with our company this year. We added 74 new clients since the user group, which was at a similar time last year. And so that was a pretty strong run through, and that was on the back of actually quite a busy year through 2013 into 14 as well. So life has been quite hectic with Union Square. Our turnover as a result has risen a little bit, and we've added 20 new people into the mix, obviously to try and support that growth. Quite challenging. We're a proprietary piece of software. There's a lot of training involved in getting our people up to speed. Obviously, there's a lot of training in getting your guys up to speed as well. So it means that we can't just go and pick people up sort of off the street who have Union Square knowledge. So trying to maintain the pace of adding staff and getting them trained is quite challenging for us, particularly when we're going through relatively strong growth. So 100 people now, and I'm delighted actually to say that the 100th employee started last Tuesday, Olivia Davidson. She's actually in our Sydney office. I haven't got a picture of her, I'm afraid, but I'm sure that would be embarrassing for her when she sees this back. But yes, so our 100th person started last week, which is quite a milestone for us as a business. I think had we talked about that maybe 5 or even 4 years ago, we would have struggled to see where that growth would come. In terms of location, we tried to sort of split the world up fairly simply. And 3 is always a good number, isn't it, I'm told. So this is where we are right now. As you can see from this map, Nottingham is very much in the centre of the world, which is fortunate because that's where I've ended up, despite the other glamorous locations. But Nottingham is where most of it happens for us. That's where most of our people are. It's where most of our activity is. But those of you who've been involved with us for a few years know that we've got aspirations to be more international, really to try and spread our risk a little bit so that we're not wholly on the UK construction sector. So we've now got 9 people down in Sydney who are doing a sterling job down there to promote our products, mainly at the moment into Australia and New Zealand. And we've had a guy over in Vancouver since September, okay, on the back of a project that we won out there. And he's starting to have some interesting commercial conversations, mainly down the western seaboard of Canada and a little bit into the US. So international for us is a key part of the strategy. But obviously UK is still by far our dominant market and one that we care very much about. User group is always a great opportunity to just say hi to a few new clients. Obviously 74 this year, some of you are here. Those of you who are here, I would really genuinely like to extend a very warm welcome to your first Union Square user group. I hope you have a good day with us. The older users around you aren't as scary as they look, honestly, so have a chat with them at coffee or lunch and talk about the stuff that you're interested in. But seriously, welcome to the fold, and I hope you have an enjoyable day. We always go through the list. I'm not going to go through them one by one, you'll be pleased to know, because I haven't got time. But just to give you the highlights here, 32 new companies on our standard platform, so that's our kind of pre-configured out-of-the-box version. 24 in the UK and Ireland, and 8 in Australia and New Zealand. And these businesses range in size from 4 to 65 users. So typically kind of SME-style businesses that are generally looking for a faster turnaround and a more standard approach. On the enterprise platform, the numbers are slightly higher. So 42 companies, 34 in the UK and Ireland, and 8 again from Australia and New Zealand. And these businesses are ranging in size from 5, which is quite small for an enterprise client, but 5 to 500. And the largest new client that we've secured a contract with this year is Lagan Construction Group over in Belfast, which is the 500-person business. So all that means that we've been pretty busy, as I've already said, but also the significant news, I guess, and certainly the different news from last year, is that in Australia they've secured 16 new sites, which is pretty impressive growth, really, given that they've been down there for around 2.5 years now. So at the year end, the guys in the Australian office were particularly happy, and they wanted to share a photo with you all at this momentous day. So small team, but obviously beautifully formed. So I'm told. This is a slide that I put in this year. When I talk to clients, I often get asked where our business comes from, and there's genuine interest, and I thought I'd share this with you. And just give you an idea of the different splits across the sector. So this year, what's been notable for us is the rise in contracting. So contractors and subcontractors, which I've lumped together. Apologies if that doesn't quite work, but it was the best way to display this. But nearly 30% of the business coming out of that space. And to be honest with you, over the last few years, the whole kind of construction, contracting part of our business has been much quieter. So there's been a resurgence, really, in terms of contracting, obviously off the back end of the recession kind of coming towards an end. Also, what's interesting, though, is consulting engineering, which has been particularly strong for us this year, and stronger than any other year. So 18 new businesses out of our client wins are consulting engineers. And the final piece of the pie, or the final two pieces of the pie, architecture, we continue to be very strong, particularly in the UK. We're certainly the dominant player in architecture in this part of the world. And Consultants QS is a similar kind of mix to how we've seen in the last few years. So a little bit of a change in this dynamic, and certainly when we're looking forward at our pipeline, we're seeing quite a lot of opportunity coming out of contractors, which obviously means that we're very pleased to be in that place and able to deliver solutions for them. The other point to make is that for the first time in actually quite a few years, the balance has tipped towards enterprise clients away from standard. And I think that's probably a reflection of businesses just generally wanting more flexibility out of their IT solutions. And obviously with our enterprise platform, that's quite a key USP for us. But that was certainly a stat that we've been watching very carefully, and it's just reflecting a slight change in the market. Just to finish then, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on future plans. The next session is all about products, and I daredn't tread on Pete's presentation and give you any indication of what he's going to talk about. But I just wanted to focus on 3 key things, and these really are reflected in the afternoon breakout sessions. But if you're interested in what we're thinking about as a business moving forwards, and what we see as key issues that we're trying to address in the sector, then certainly these 3 are well up there. Union Square Mobile being something that we're putting an awful lot of effort into, and is certainly something you're going to see plenty of today. We have a new recruit who's heading up our mobile strategy and delivery, who you're going to hear from a bit later on. But for us, mobile is just a great opportunity, and it has to be a win-win situation. You know, we see so many fundamentally manual processes around collecting data on site, and we just know that if we can get the platform right, it just saves you loads of time and therefore saves you money, and therefore should be beneficial to both. So this is a huge part of where we're moving, and certainly something I'm particularly excited about right now. Digital construction collaboration, well, you notice I didn't use the word BIM there, but obviously there's a lot of airtime around BIM still. Frankly, there's still a lot of people in the market who don't quite know what the hell that's going to mean for them. But as a business, you know, we're knowledge management experts, and what we need to be doing is trying to find a way, certainly of grabbing some of the information that's being generated in the models and doing something smart with it. I think it's fair to say that if you're looking purely at the I bit of BIM, which is information, we haven't seen actually many examples of that really being used as it's intended to be right now. So we see a lot of it of 3D modelling, but the I part, which is quite a crucial part of the cell, if you like, still a little bit weak. But we're doing a lot of R&D in this area to try and come up with some practical solutions that actually make some sense to people. And you know, rather than some of the sort of fluffy stuff that's out there and doesn't necessarily do very much. So a big area for us, and it's not just about BIM. It's also about collaboration. It's all about how we communicate with the construction team. You know, if we can move to a situation where the collaboration amongst that team is based more around some kind of systemised process or IM style approach, commenting, receiving. All online, all systemised, that's got to be better than firing thousands of emails around, isn't it? So, you know, we're on a crusade to try and kill email, if we can. We won't win, but certainly there are lots of opportunity to get email out of this construction communication process, and we're very keen to try and do something about that as we move forwards. And finally, arguably the most exciting topic, accounting. I can see you are all straining at the leash to get into this session this afternoon. But seriously, no, they're not, sorry. Seriously, project accounting is a big deal for us. You know, nearly 100 of our clients use this suite of modules. Obviously, they're only professional services businesses, but it's a key part of our proposition, and therefore it deserves the airtime that it gets. Because for us, moving forwards, we've got to understand what you need from that part of our system. We've got to throw some ideas at you, and we've got to try and keep that thing moving on and make sure that it's delivering the right kind of solutions for you and the rest of the market. So those are the three key areas, and that's me done. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who's going to talk to you more specifically about what we've been doing with product this year. Again, genuinely, it's great to see so many people here. There's a record attendance here today, so pat yourselves on the back. We've got 200 people registered for this event, which is the first time we've got to that number as well. So great to see you all here. Thank you for making the effort, and I hope we can deliver a decent day for you. Please enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, good morning, everyone. So for the next 2 hours, you've got lots of exciting and lovely new software to look at with me and some of my friends. This is how the session breaks down. We've got a short introduction, followed by an update on mobile from Nick Nieder. After that, 2 new bits of technology in the shape of our DMS projections and the new Union Square Business Intelligence module. And we have a coffee break scheduled at 11:10, which I suspect we may be a little bit late for, but hopefully not too late. We've got half an hour set aside for that, so I may squeeze that a little bit, depending on how we go. After that, we have an update on project accounting from Tim Setchfield, followed by an update on BIM from Phil Shaw, a bit of futures, and the usual Q&A section at the end, aiming to finish at 12:30 for lunch. So that's how this is going to look. So, introduction, I would like to talk a little bit about the new release strategy. This is something that we sent some emails out, or technical bulletin out a while ago, and I really just wanted to go through the reason for this change and the sort of things we're trying to deal with here. So really the first question is why are we doing it? What is the problem? Well, maybe this will help to explain the issue we have. This is a typical Union Square release year previously. So we have 4 or 5 of these releases happening every year. And each of those releases adds a chunk of new functionality into the software. And we have this little thing called the hotfix window. And the hotfix window for release 2 is that little gap of space there. And what that means is, in that space of time, we can put software onto your systems that fixes a problem but doesn't introduce new change. In other words, the users don't really notice that. It's a hot fix, so the fix is the key word there. And the problem is this, in that you've had an upgrade, we discover a problem, but the problem is actually fixed in release 3, which means we have to take you through a full upgrade rather than just a hotfix. And that's a problem, because a hotfix upgrade is a fairly simple thing, a full upgrade is a fairly complicated thing with changes for the user. So our plan here, and there are some other bits and bobs here that we have issues with in terms of the regularity of the releases, in terms of support staff dealing with lots of versions, keeping documentation up to date. There's some scheduling issues as well. The solution to all this is to move to a single feature release, so an annual feature release. And this is the feature release where all new features, all new modules will become available. And in fact, the first one is due any day now, middle of next month. So if you have an upgrade booked past the middle of next month, you'll be getting the 2015 release. And what that gives us is it gives us this 12-month hotfix window. And that means that in this 12-month period, we can fix things, we can put those onto your sites, and from a user's point of view, they're silent. We can put them on without as much planning or as much detail as before, because we know they are just fixing problems, not introducing new features. So they're much lower impact than a traditional upgrade. Now, our longer term plans are to look some automation here. And the two things in red are very deliberate, because what we want to do is be able to, long term, push a release to you, push a hotfix release to you, rather than having to have a very long and protracted manual process that we run from our office. But obviously, if we're pushing an upgrade to you, it needs to be silent, because we need to be able to push that to your system, and the users don't need to notice any difference in features or capability, just the problem that they were experiencing will be resolved. And this is a bit like what we do with our cache server upgrades, if anyone's familiar with those. So it's quite important that during the year we have these hot fixes as just fixes and not new features. Now, I suspect sticking to that 100% is going to be very difficult, but that's what we're aiming for. So this is how a year will look. So we're approaching May. You can see that we're anticipating, rather than a full kick-off into our new developments in June, we anticipate a little bit of hotfixing activity, heavy hotfixing activity, as a wider group of users past our early adopters start to use the new software and the new features. We then have our big run of stream developments and unit tests. So our internal models now mean that as developers release code, the actual release of code is tested immediately, not regression tested through the software, but the actual change is tested immediately. And then in February, we move into our full regression test, where we put all the software together and test the thing as a whole. And then we have our 2-month early adopter period running into May again, and then the whole cycle repeats. And that's what we're looking to do carrying on forward, really. So looking at 2015, we have quite a lot of new software shipping. So these are the areas that you'll notice from the agenda are going to be discussed in this morning's session. But we have a lot of brand new technology, brand new modules released at this point. So what we are going to be doing initially is just restricting rollout, just to make sure that we can understand the consultancy and the support impact of some of these brand new technologies. So just to make you aware that the new capability is in the 2015 release, but the things will be turned on gradually as we start to just understand what the rollout implications of them are. So here's a question. Will any new software be released during the year? Well, yes, it will actually. It just sounds like a contradiction, but I'll explain in a moment. So our workflow applications. If you remember, workflow is a runtime. In other words, if you have the workflow runtime on your system already, you are able to consume new workflow applications. It's more of a definition than releasing software. We are able to do that through the year. The Union Square mobile app, so that's the device that installs on iPads or Androids or phones and so on. Again, that's not tied to Union Square as such. We can release that through the year, through the App Store and the Play Store. The mobile applications themselves, so the site pack we're going to be looking at in a moment, other packs we're looking to develop. Again, these are driven from workflow typically, so we have this capability of adding these things mid-year. And generally, well, not exclusively, but generally they are independent of Union Square releases. So that's the news there. Okay, so moving on from from release. I'd like to talk a little bit about some enhancements that aren't covered by any of the major sections today. Now the first one I'm sure is going to be very popular. Some of you are already aware of this. And this is the ability to see that an email has an attachment in our email view screen in the DMS. So we had lots of requests for this feature from you. Actually quite a challenge. It might sound like a very simple thing. It's actually technically quite a challenging development. But now what happens in the DMS is you see a little paperclip, as you would expect to see in the mail view. You can also search on it. So if you're looking to search for emails with attachments, again, you'll notice there's now a search filter available for it. And also if you have a list of emails in a screen, you can click on the column and sort the things in terms of seeing the ones with attachments at the top. We've done a lot of work, and this is really a work that a lot of users won't really experience, but it's important maybe to talk about it. A lot of work on the search server. So this is our technology that we built that does the DMS searching. We introduced some new technology here a couple of years ago. This has been rewritten for one major feature really, and that is to support more than one search server on a single site. So larger systems where large scale that system, lots of users, people were, I suppose, quite rightly saying, well, the search server is a bit of a point of failure. If the search server goes down, the DMS searching isn't there. So they wanted a failover capability, so that the multiple servers gives us that. It also gives us better performance, because effectively the search servers will both be online at the same time, taking requests, and the first one to respond will respond, and therefore you'll get an acceleration in performance. The other thing we've done, and this isn't really related to the multiple search server thing, but we've also changed the way that the system starts up. So I know some of you may have experienced quite long waits when the server starts, sometimes 10, 20, 30 minutes before the search server is fully up. So we've changed the way that works slightly, so now the startup is very much quicker. In a few minutes from a restart, the search server will be up. So I think for quite a beneficial change there. So our iPhone remote access module. So this is the web-based access module for iPhone and iPad we've had for quite a while. So we're changing this, not significantly, but the main thing about this is that we've rebuilt it slightly to allow it to work on other platforms, because obviously restricting it to iPhone was not ideal. We've now got support for Android and the later Windows and mobile browsers in as well. We've had to make some slight UI changes to support those other platforms, but nothing too major, so that the front screen looks very similar. The main difference actually is the photo screen, which used to have a sort of swipe across style, which is very particular to Apple. The other platforms don't support that, so we've gone to a more standard listing like this of photos. And we need to rebrand this. It'll be called Mobile Access Module. Remember, this isn't the mobile device we'll be showing next, to do with the offline working. This is simply access to Union Square via a mobile web site, if you like. Something we introduced a few releases ago actually was mobile email publishing. So a lot of people were saying, although we can't actually directly hook the email tools on mobile phones, they wanted some mechanism to put email into Union Square whilst they were out and about on the road, so to speak. So we've introduced a new capability which allows you to define a preset folder for a particular project or combination of project and document pool or pools. And then the user can, when they're offline, because that data will sync with their mobile phone, move messages into that folder. When they reconnect to Outlook, because those messages are set in a special folder, those messages are automatically published into Union Square. So a couple of screenshots for you. So here you can see I've got my Union Square mobile publish root folder, and I've added a project in there called Ulra, which is one of our project code names at Union Square. And at the bottom of my menu, I have a little auto-publish settings option. I click on that, and I see a very familiar screen. It's the screen that we see when we publish using the Outlook add-in, and I select the appropriate item from my quick list there. What happens then is that appears on your device, you move the message in there, it picks up the definition of the folder you've set just there, and the email is published. So the nice thing about that is it doesn't require any change on the mobile device, it's just part of the email folders that you see listed on the mobile device. Okay, absence. So we talked about absence quite a bit last year. The news is, and you're probably aware of this, that we didn't actually release absence in the UK last year. That was our original plan. We did release on a limited basis to some of our Australasian clients, and that was primarily because of a couple of features which they require in order to use the module at all. And in fact, we did use it internally. But our main concern centred over migration of existing data and some of the things we were seeing in terms of more complex approval routes, some of the views and searches on the old system that people had customised or were using in certain ways. We just hadn't quite got those meshed together quite correctly, so we wanted to spend a bit more time working on those, which we've done. And so we are making Absence part of the 2015 release. It has now support for migration of more complex approval routes if you set those up on your systems. And the views and searches are much more in keeping with the existing ones now. We have added some extra features, quite minor stuff in a way, to also do with really management and improvements in the UI, which are certainly valid. The main thing we've added, I think, that's of interest is some much more powerful tools for dealing with year-end. What I'm talking about here really is entitlement. So when people carry entitlement into the next year, they may want to add an extra day for years of service. They may want to carry forward a certain amount of holiday if someone's not consumed that. And we've built a tool to let you do that. So I think, I mean, just looking at our little, maybe not so little business anymore, that has the potential to save hours at year end as people move across Absence from the previous year. A few words about workflow. Not as much to say here this year. So we've really not added much in the way of features to workflow, and that's simply because we already have a very broad feature set with this environment for building applications. We've done a couple of things that are notable. We've simplified certain complicated design processes. So when you're building a search screen in workflow, that was quite a, we believed, unnecessary complex job. We've made that simpler. We've enhanced the reporting requirements. If you want to report on workflow data from SQL Server or Excel, we've provided some extra capabilities there. What we've actually spent most of our time on are these two things, and especially the top one. So the performance of it, especially in certain applications, hasn't been up to scratch. It just hasn't been quick enough. We've suffered reliability in certain areas. So pretty much the whole team has been spending time on those two areas. And we have been making progress, but there is more work to do here. And I suppose the culmination of the efforts will be in the next version, which is version 19, due out in the summer. That does mean that we are not rolling out or fully releasing extranet at this stage. We have some early adopters of extranet, but we believe until version 19 is its backbone, it's just not quick enough for general release. So version 19 in summer, some rework to do on extranet to work with some of the version 9 improvements. We're looking at late summer realistically for a full release of extranet. Just a few notes of requirements for the up and coming releases to give you a little bit of notice on these things. So the 2015 release, there are a number of things that aren't supported for that release. So for example, Windows 2003 Server, you'll need to be moving on to 2008 to put this release onto your system. There's quite a lot of use of self-signed HTTPS certificates. If you know what those are, fine. If you don't worry. They're not expensive, but you need proper certificates for your servers going forward for this release. And also the previous DMS search screen, so the screen that looks like that. Probably quite similar to the current one, but notice the lack of expanders on the left-hand side. There's no tabs for seeing working files and my published documents. The views is a little drop down. So that's the old one. That's the new one. So this new one is the one that's supported from the 2015 release. We're not testing the old one for the 2015 release. So we need to move to this if not already. For 2016, we're going to need to move away from SQL Server 2005. The Leave module and the DM Lite module were being replaced by Absence module and DLM module respectively. So we will no longer be testing those. And remember that we're not saying we're not supporting the things in that list above. We're simply saying that on that release we're not supporting. So if you want to carry on using Windows 2003 Server or the Leave module, and I can't think of a good reason why you would, then you could currently stay on your current release. But if you move on to the new releases, you need to deal with these things. And we will be sending a technical bulletin out to remind you all of this in the next month or so. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to Nick, who's going to go through a bit of an update on mobile developments.
Brilliant, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I'm just going to talk you through our current situation with mobile and where we are currently compared to where we've been. So as some of you will be aware, we released SitePack in the last year, and that's the core Android app. And in addition to that, we're now early adopter on an iOS version. And you're going to see the iOS version shortly with Pete doing a demonstration. So they're both out now. They're both downloadable from the App Store. And the iOS will go to full release very shortly by the end of the month. In addition to that, and as part of our project accounting offering, we made a decision to write a separate timesheet and expenses app to be released. So it's a standalone iOS app to begin with. We're just about to start the Android cut of it shortly. And its core functions are around actually delivering the timesheet, the expenses, but in such a way that it does allow you to do the cross-project allocations as well. So it's quite sophisticated in there. And Tim's going to be demonstrating, I think, parts of that around his project accounting work. In general terms, we've done a number of things to improve the product. So the search feature has been introduced. We became very conscious as volumes started to increase on the mobile device that people needed to be able to find things quicker. So there's an internal search function there now. Also, it's been purple from day one, so we've now taken it to a place that you can colour brand it in line with your main standard Union Square. We've also, as forms got longer and longer, I got very conscious that we wanted to allow saving in the actual form so that it would minimise data loss. So they're all key enhancements there. And also going forward, and currently we're working on a number of complex integrations. And we'll talk more and more about custom later in the day, but significantly what we're finding is that we have lots and lots of clients that have very simple mobile needs. I'd like to take a traditional paper form into a process and turn it into a document in your document store. In addition, though, we're getting people and clients that are coming to us saying, well, we'd like to start in mobile and we'd like to capture some stuff. But then we'd also like to drive it into a band, and we would like to do some process stuff with it, and we'd like some notifications and some approvals. And we're doing that kind of custom work with some early adopters as well. The key to delivering mobile applications within our tool, though, is the controls. Are the devices, are the things that you can put on your mobile app to actually ask the questions. And so we've released a new batch of these. Done a lot of work around the use of QR codes, and it's really pivotal in the snagging solution that you'll see later in the afternoon. We've extended the photo controller so that not only does it do more work on controlling the size of the imagery, but also it allows you to specify when you design a form that the form requires 1 or 2 or 3 photographs. We did an initial study, and what we were finding with very simple mobile tools where you weren't controlling that is people were taking lots and lots and lots of photographs, and was that really needed? And so we wanted to be able to add some controls there. We also wanted people to be able to take a photograph on their device, take a little video clip maybe even, and then pick that up and put them into a mobile process later. So you're able to select images and video from gallery now. Mandatory field control we felt was really important, particularly if we want to then stretch into the space that is how you could do KPI reporting and how you could do performance reporting. We felt that you needed to be able to say which were your mandatory fields, so you've got a decent data set. You don't want the user to leave gaps in their forms. Signature has been an important part of that. We control lots of security information by knowing who's on the device. But if you're talking to a third party and you want them to acknowledge receipt or an agreement with something, to be able to give them a device and to be able to sign on the device and then that become into the form, we felt was really, really important. And actually people have got very used to signing with their fingers. So anybody gets a delivery from UPS or any of those, you're very suddenly given a device at your front door and asked to sign with your thumb. And we were originally concerned that people wouldn't want to do that, but actually it's become the norm. And finally, and really significantly for us, is parent-child controls. And I'll talk a little bit about this shortly, but it gives us such a great opportunity to do more complex forms. So this is sort of where SitePack sits. So we've got Union Square in its classic sense. We've got users within offices, within construction sites, and all using the tool to put information in and out. And for a long while, I think the industry was looking at wanting to adopt mobile technology, shiny technology. They wanted to have a tablet because it had become so dominant in the domestic space. But really, when we started putting SitePack together, it was what is the initial need that we need to be able to deliver. So we felt that base SitePack, with the product that's out there now, has some key features around it, and it is contractor bias at the moment. We've got some plans to do something about that, but we felt this was a good entry point. So we've got access to your project information straight down onto your solution, access to key documents in an offline state. So you go to the project record, you identify the documents from your main document store that you want to make available, and then they get pushed down onto your mobile devices. Access to the team directory, simple things like telephone numbers, who's on the team. Progress photographs and the process around capturing that, snagging and defects, and site observations. So this has been our base product for the SitePack, pushing obviously back into the Union Square solution. And this is a big point that we're talking to new opportunities around, is a lot of our competitors will end up making a solution for people that puts the data outside of their main structures. And our main selling point here, our USP here, is that it puts it straight into our data structures. So really, just to summarize these controls again, we've got this parent-child, this multi-response form. Something we discovered very early when we started looking at custom work was that people wanted to create an inspection, so an inspection mobile process, and then they wanted to make observations on that inspections on the same question, and they wanted to have a number of them. So this ability to have a complex form that has multiple part answers really opens up loads of opportunities for audits and surveys and inspection style processes. Signature, again, I've spoken about in terms of allowing us to capture other people's responses. Standard and custom drop-downs. So we hold loads of information about your project within the main tool. We wanted to make that information available to your user on your mobile device. So if they're doing a work inspection, they can choose the work package. And the work package is coming straight from your core product. Also, the ability to be able to have drop-downs that don't just simply have yes-no answers, but have words in them that allow you to specify and simplify the data capture. So you'll be able to put words in there that allow them to identify an issue. So whether it's a defect type, whether it's an observation type, and just structure that to your needs in a custom way. And finally, obviously, with the photo capture, this is really important and really starts to bring the forms alive. You could create simple forms that have yes-no answers, or you can create forms that embed photographs into them, and that really is where we think there's great opportunity to clarify detail when picking up information from site. And the other part around QR codes, we've used it as part of our snagging solution, our defect solution around identifying locations and being able to put QR codes onto site information panels or room data sheets so that people can zap that code to identify their location. But in the custom world, there's great opportunities here to embed it within your document control processes, a way of controlling your controlled documents on site if you're a contractor, potentially a way of registering documents that are coming into your organization and then wanting to use them to distribute them around your organization. And then moving on to assets and inspections, maybe putting stickers on objects that you want to manage and then being able to use your mobile device to pick up the QR code and then audit against that. So whether that's daily inspections for plant, whether that's asset management of equipment and facilities in your organizations. Those kinds of opportunities sit around the QR codes. Peter.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So, here we have my iPad being projected onto the screen for you, so you can see that I've actually logged in. I'm looking at my various projects. You'll notice at the top I have a project I've created for our event today. So we have a few KPIs about snags that I have in play. I have some general information on the project. I can look at project contacts. Nick mentioned some new searching facilities, so if I'm looking for a particular person in a big list, I can jump to that record directly, so that's quite a lot better than the great big scrolling list we had before. I'm not going to go through all of the site pack because I know we did some work on this last year, but I wanted to pick up some of the sort of new features we've introduced. And one of them is the QR code thing, which we believe is quite an important feature. And you may have noticed as you walked in that there's a little QR code actually on the entrance here. That's the QR code for this room, this location. So I'm here in the device. I've not gone into a project. I've not gone into a location. And what I'm able to do is walk up to a QR code, use the quick navigate function. Which is very slow. And that immediately has jumped me to ground floor location auditorium within the project. Oh.
Got air service disconnect.
I knew this would go wrong. I'll do that again. Okay. Try again. So. Work that time? Good. So what's happened there, even though I was on the main project screen, I hadn't gone into a project, I hadn't gone into a story or a location, it's jumped me straight to the correct location in the correct area without having to do any entry at all. So what I could now do is I could engage with the process here. So let's just say I take a photo. Let's say we have a photo of clients. Ooh, condition survey. There we go. I'll have that one, that's an absolute cracker. That's another one. Always take two. Oh dear. Mind. It'll do. So I submit that. Now I'm actually online, but if I was offline it wouldn't have mattered. The device that would have been saved and queued up and processed into Union Square when I next got a connection. But now if I just pop into Union Square on my little device here, and in fact, if I go to a different project, not that one, in fact, if I just go to the DMS and look for the last documents, you'll see we have auditorium clients, 2 photos there. So it's taken the location, it's added that into the name, it's put in the name I typed, it's date and time stamped it for us, it's just gone straight in. So it's a simple process, but nevertheless pretty useful. The other thing I wanted to do was, again, the snagging process we're going to go through in a bit more detail this afternoon, but I was just going to show you the observation because that's quite a good sort of generalised feature we have in the software. So I'm going to go into my Euston Square project, into my activities, and I'm going to log an observation.
P, up on the screen.
Oh dear. Yep, we're back. Okay, I'll go back one. So I was in the project, so I've gone from the project menu into an activities, log observation, and I could say issue with Wigton. What type is it? Let's say this is a site issue. Let's take a photo of that again. I'll get a good one this time. Oh yeah. So I've captured a bit of data. I could allocate it to a contact if I wanted. If I don't, it's just something that I deal with. But on this one, I'm going to mark it onto, in terms of location, on a existing drawing that I have on the device as a key document. And you'll see I've got a couple of actual drawings for this particular location. So this is where we are. Yep, that's the right floor. And I can then add a marker to that. So I think I'm standing about there. I think that's right. Yeah. And I can then submit that. So what happens with that is that then goes into my dashboard because it's really reminding me that when I get back into a site office or back into a main office that I've got something to do about that particular issue. I can be allocating it to someone else. I can go and look at the details. I can make comments against it. So if I just pop into Union Square again quickly. And I go into my main personal zone. I will have an observation. It's not that one, just refresh that. So there's my issue with lectern. I can see my various details there. I can look at the image, it'll be a bit grainy. I can have a look at the location details, see whereabouts on that particular drawing the actual problem was. I can add comments to it, so I can just make notes about it. It stays in my dashboard as an outstanding item for me to deal with. When I'm happy with it, and I'm closing it off saying I've dealt with it, or the person I've reallocated to has dealt with it, they can just submit that. And then what happens is it moves on to the next one. And on the project, you'll see that we have the ability to look at observations, outstanding observations, observations that have been commented on, so I can search and look at the history of them and so on. And so quite a good generalised way of just capturing things that happen on sites or locations that you maybe want to, you don't have necessarily a completely formal process with, but want to be able to get a handle on and pass on to someone else. Okay, I think I'll probably do. Nick, I'll hand over to you again.
So I've kind of gone through where we're at as of today. Futures-wise, we've been looking at the very broad scope of the requirements coming into us from you guys, and also what our competitors are up to. And they kind of come under the following headings: around access to information, around audit and inspection in particular. There's some real great opportunity there. General record keeping. This is the kind of forms that are generated on site, historically put into a Lever Arch file, and hopefully never looked at again, only there to evidence a problem if you need to go back to it or defend a claim or those kind of situations. Timesheet and expenses is something quite unique to us because obviously our project accounting solution allows us to interconnect in that well, but also capturing time is important. Contact management around CRM, around being able to do site visits with people and be able to put the actions down at the moment you leave rather than to have to wait till you get home or talk to your PA or whatever the situation is and sit there and type them into the traditional way of doing that. And then just getting hold of and managing your contract admin. So we feel quite strongly that there will always be the need for a tool that will manage your contract administration, and our CA product does that. But giving a mobile opportunity to that space so that you can raise an RFI or respond to another process, a TQ, we think is a great opportunity. So with that in mind, what we've decided to do is split our product into what we call packs. So our core module, core mobile, will give you the project access, the framework that you've seen on Pete's system, give you project access and key document access. It's going to give you your progress photographs and your site observations and the action management tool. When it comes to actual site pack, we've decided to split it into two. And what's become really clear to us is there's a need for two flavours of this. The construction version of it around a contractor's view of snagging, site diaries, day worksheets for subcontractors, and work inspections. And then in the consultant space, client snagging and managing the snagging from the client's perspective, site visit reports or surveys, and then site instructions. All of those processes there will really hopefully enable our client base, you guys, to start to get value from our base product. We then obviously have our time and expenses module as an offering, and then going forward we're looking to create packs around audit inspection, CRM pack, and induction and compliance. So this idea that you want to manage who's coming into your site from a contractor's perspective, and also understand the compliance situation around permits and those kind of activities. The first pack, though, really to come live, and this is coming live quite shortly for us, is custom mobile forms. When I first joined the business at Christmas, what became very clear was we were getting lots and lots of requirements from you, the clients, to say we'd like to do some mobile forms. And for us to do that historically has been quite a handcrafted process. So we weren't able to do that in a fast and productive way. And that was fine initially for the small form requests that we were getting, the 1s and 2s. But if you look at the average library of quality forms within most of our clients, they go from 20 to about 450, depending on size of organisation and what they do. So we needed to find a tool that was going to allow this to become a really slick process and was going to allow eventually the client, you guys, to own this. And it's a tool that you will be able to use to generate your own mobile forms. So Custom Pack is a toolkit. It is specifically designed around converting simple forms to archive. It's going to be initially led by our consultants, but going forward quite quickly, we're going to sell this as a module, effectively, that you guys will be able to do your own forms on. It's been designed to be simply used. This is not a technical tool. That's very deliberate. In our view, the ideal candidate to own this tool in your organisation is going to be your assistant quality manager, your document controller, your site company administrators, because this tool should be as simple to use as the other Word and Office products that they're used to at the moment. No more complex than that. It's designed around pushing these documents straight into the DMS, and either directly or via an approval route, so it can go to a manager to acknowledge or approve, and then it gets published. It's non-technical, and we're aiming to get this out to clients at the beginning of 2016, although we are talking to some early adopters currently. So here's a few brief screenshots of the tool. This came off the press yesterday, and there will be a live demo this afternoon for the first time in public, so that's going to be quite interesting. But just to give you an idea of how the tool works, you will create a form. This is like a definition. It's really simple. You have two objects on the left-hand side. You have the form design itself and where you want to publish it. Once you've got that, you'll have the ability to put sections in, and then the actual fields, the actual questions you want to fill out. The fields are controlled and allow you to have types. So anybody who's seen SurveyMonkey and those kind of products historically, it's that same kind of premise around saying, I want a decision, it's going to be a yes, no. I want a text box. I want a photograph. It's going to be a signature capture. Again, as simple as picking it from a list and placing it and then moving forward. And the end result is an auto-generated Word file that will sit in your DMS. Clients will have the opportunity, you guys, to design the headers and the footers so it can comply to your internal QA processes. But the actual style and the content in the middle is automatically generated to the system. You get to choose your font styles for the headers, the data, and the field labels. So in that way, we haven't got to spend a huge amount of time designing Word templates. And one of the things we discovered in the initial stages of custom work we were doing was we could build you a mobile form really quickly. We would then spend a good day trying to get Word to behave. And it's all about how Word deals with merged data rather than actually what the mobile product is. So we've created a method that allows us to auto-generate these. And one enhancement we're looking to use to put forward is that you'll be able to generate your forms like this. You'll be able to push them live into your mobile space. And then you'll also be able to create a blank form that you could put into your paper world of blank forms. I think we understand that clients that go live with this potentially will run in a dual way for a while. They'll have some of their business going mobile, but they'll also have folks still using traditional paper. And so that you can keep both versions of the forms pegged at the same point, we wanted to enable that by creating these blank forms. So you only have the one place to edit, push it into the mobile space, but also then generate that so it becomes your traditional paper form. That's going to have some fundamental style changes because obviously mobile ends up being very long and thin and not wide as a traditional form would be because people are used to using that as the way of capturing it and therefore it tends to be grids, not linear. But that's the plan going forward with our auto-generated forms. How this comes out to you in terms of adoption, we're spending quite a lot of time consulting with clients around their early aspirations on this. Core Mobile will be installed on your system, and you'll take one of the packs, which will be SitePack. Then, as extensions to standard products come out, they become available to you, and one of the examples of that is Timesheet Expenses. and then we move into the custom world. And we've got two options here. Custom pack, the piece you've just seen, that we can do work for you, or actually you can buy it as a module and become self-edit. Or if you start talking to us around wanting complex stuff using the workflow tool, then you can create mobile in our main workflow product as well. Either that's work we do for you, or you are an enterprise author and do it yourself.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, we are running a little bit behind now, so let's just get into the rest of the content here. Next item to talk about is DMS projections. So, what's this all about? Well, that was really the objective of projections. Some key words in that list, in that phrase rather. Alternative is an important one. This isn't replacing the DMS. It's just a different way of looking at it. And the other important aspect of that is the sort of final part of that sentence about retaining existing audit capabilities. We're not breaking any of our DMS rules here. We're simply providing another view of the DMS. Why are we bothering doing this? Well, there's a number of reasons, really. Some are reasons to do with other pieces of software. So, for example, Microsoft Office, things like InDesign. If you want to link a file into these systems, you can't do it via an HTTP, an internet-style link that we use in our DMS. The ability to navigate to a file in a file system and do it means that we can start to have files in Union Square, but link into applications like this. Publishing, we've often desired within an application itself, so if we're in Word and we want to edit a file or publish a new file, it'd be nice to do it within Word without having to go and then check it in remotely using the Working Files dashboard. The Working Files dashboard can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things, clever things that we can't do just by placing a file in a folder, but sometimes a single folder and a single entity of a project is good enough, so we wanted to provide this sort of simple publish capability. A lot of you have asked us to move files between pools when they've been incorrectly published, between one pool to another pool, one project to another project. Again, we can now do this using familiar Windows techniques. I go into a folder, I copy all the files, and I drag them into another folder and paste them, and I move them. And that translates into a DMS move as well. Printing. So Windows does some quite good things with printing. You can click on 10 files at once and say print. Now, Windows actually opens each one, but it will necessarily, at the same time, end up with 10 documents printed. It also has some quite nice support for printing images, so you can print images, multi-images on a page if you can see them in a list in a Windows share, so some extra benefits there. Almost more important than any of that, in some ways, is that we have a platform here for other things that we'd like to provide. So offline documents, the ability using standard Windows Sync technology to say, that project, that particular folder, make this available offline on my laptop. So when I take my laptop away, all those files are still there. Potentially even translating that into a publish as well. If I make a change to those files and I reconnect, and then we have to deal with contention here, I can put that new version back in automatically. Some quite exciting things we can do with Windows Sync. And also, we've expressed a desire to do more with the sort of work-in-progress management of CAD files, the native CAD files, before they're generated as a rendition for issue and so on. How have we done this? Well, what actually happens with projections is the server you put projections on, you see another disk drive, P drive, something like that. This can then be shared out with users in the normal way. It's not a copy, so this server doesn't have all your DMS on it. The actual files you see in the projection are the real files that are stored in the current file system. Entities are shown as routes, so your projects are listed out. And within your projects, you see document pools. To publish a file, you put it into a projection. To edit a file, you navigate to a projection, find a file, open it, make a change and save it. That gets translated into a revision. So let's have a quick demo of that. So here's my little Union Square system here, and if I go into Windows Explorer, you'll see that I have a P drive on my machine here. If I click on that, you'll see I have two entities defined. If I go into Project, you'll see all the entities that are currently on this system. And if I go into Chase Park and into, let's say, Image Library and Marketing Images, then I'll see a load of files. And it's exactly the same as if I went into Union Square and went to Chase Park, went into the DMS, and had a look at Images, Marketing Image. It's the same list. So it's simply a different view of the same data. So I may, for example, want to edit a file. So what I could do is I could go into Word, and I could, in fact, an even easier way than that is if I just go into my file system and I navigate into my P drive, into my Chase Park project again. Let's look at project administration. Reports. Environmental, there's an arboricultural report. Ooh, can't quite say that. Then maybe that picture's not quite big enough, so I could make that picture a lot bigger, and I could save that file, and then just come out of Word. Now, the difficulty with a demonstration like that is that because of the way we're having to work with Word, there's a natural delay between me making the change and the actual change appearing in Union Square. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second, but what it means, it creates a really awkward situation where I've got to think of something to say for 30 seconds. So I don't know if anyone's got any good jokes. We'll give it a whirl. So I think I put that into environmental, but after a period, let's have a look, 24th, that's not there yet. So this could take as long as 30 seconds, and 30 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, unless you stood in front of 200 people, desperately trying to think of something interesting to say. Thankfully it's worked. There we go, see? That wasn't quite 30 seconds. 29th of April, if I open that document now in Union Square, you'll see it has my slightly bigger picture. And in fact, if I was to go into this document and look at versions, you'll see that it was published on the 29th, and there was my previous version. So your version history is intact. But one interesting thing about the editing is if that document was initially published through working files and was published in 10 document pools linked to that project and 3 organisations, then the edit would have retained all that metadata. So it's quite a good way of making a quick edit to a document because it retains the metadata. Publishing a brand new document, you've only got really one game in town, which is one pool, one entity. Other things that are quite interesting, so let's say I go into my projection again, and we go into, let's have a look, Chase Park again. If I go into my images library, so things like, you can do printing. So if I put that into thumbnail view, then I can select multiple items here. And in Windows, when you do printing, you get the choice of having, items organised on a page for you. So just some convenient features that we're just taking advantage of, really, because we're exposing the DMS in this way. Okay, so there are some important considerations with this, and the first one's probably the most significant. It doesn't require a super powerful server, but it does require its own server. It isn't storing a lot of documents because the documents are actually in the existing file store. It needs a modest amount of storage. It doesn't need backing up because it's not actually a server in the traditional sense. It doesn't need a lot of memory. It doesn't need a lot of processing power, but it needs to be a server. And this might seem obvious, but it only works for network users. So if you're not on the network, you don't get to see this share. The security is managed by Union Square, so you don't have to worry about people seeing things in the folders that they shouldn't, because the actual mapping of what you see in the projected folder is all derived from the existing Union Square security. So providing you expose the network share to users, that's all you really need to do. It looks after itself. And I've mentioned this issue with a single pool, single entity publish. Remember that there is a slight delay to publishing, and the reason for this, we could have made it instant, but the problem is that with the way modern software works, the only event we're able to hook to turn into a publish is save. If someone clicks on save 5 times in a minute, we don't want to publish 5 versions. So there is a potential if people are really saving regularly, and the reason why modern applications are quite confusing in the way they work with the files is because they're protecting you anyway by auto-saving. But if you do save lots of times, then periodically you'll get extra versions created. So that's something to be aware of. There's really nothing we can do about that. It's just a limitation of the way Windows and file management in apps is working, nothing to do with us. We're currently not enabling it for DLM, and the reason for that is to do with the whole rendition principle and this idea of placeholder records that DLM has. We have to think about how we expose it in DLM a bit more. And again, Windows Sync is a future plan, but we don't currently have it. Okay, on to the next thing. So Union Square Business Intelligence. So again, what we're trying to do with this? Well, this is all about empowering our users, our clients, to build their own visualizations of data in Union Square without having to be developers or experienced report writers. Why are we doing it? Well, it's very hard to predict people's requirements in reporting terms, especially in summary reporting terms. People's requirements change over time, and there's a certain amount of latency if there's a sort of development job on the back of that. This desire to visualize data is very popular now. People like to see graphs of things rather than tabular data. People like graphs of important facts grouped together in dashboards, very common thing you'll see in lots of pieces of software now, because they're just faster to absorb a lot of information fairly quickly. We do have some tools for visualizing data now, but they are technical tools, and therefore there's a certain amount of latency in terms of getting them onto a system. How have we done this? Well, this is a change from last year. So last year we were talking about enhancing our advanced search framework to provide a form of BI. We've changed our mind. And we've changed our mind because the market's moved quite a lot further forward than we'd really anticipated. So we reviewed the market, and we eventually signed an agreement with an Australian business called Yellowfin, whose real sort of raison d'etre is to provide technology to people like us. It's a web-based application, so it would go onto the existing Union Square server, and it integrates into Union Square in the sense that you see new zones across the top menu of Union Square as dashboards. Within an entity, you have a band set that can be a dashboard, and you're controlling those using existing security. The users are logged straight into this system. They don't have to enter additional logons. And it's effectively licensed as a module. The module license means that all your users can consume visualizations, but you have a single person building the visualizations. If you want additional people to build them, that's fine, but those additional report builders have cost. And an important limitation here is the way our licensing has worked with this third party, it's Union Square data only. That's quite important. So that's why the price point of this is as a module rather than a very big price tag, which they typically are. So how does it work? Well, I'll just run you through this and we'll have a quick look at this. So you select a view. So this is a view that we would build. We would pre-build a set of views for you, initially targeting the project accounting data, but longer term, really any data in Union Square is in scope. So you will select a suitable view depending on what you want to report on. Let's say you want to look at project forecast information. You then determine the required fields, so you're dragging and dropping on a palette here. You then determine any filters you want. So do you want the data filtered naturally? I just want year-to-date information, or do I want the user to be able to select a filter to determine what they see? The system allows you to very simply invoke those. What do you want to see visualized? Do you want to see a dial? Do you want to see a graph? Do you want to see some sort of chart? There's a very wide range available. And then you save this as a report. And then you go into your dashboard and you add your new report to your dashboard. And then you can do some very clever things in terms of sharing filters on that big dashboard screen. So let's have a quick look. We're a little bit short of time, but I'll give you a quick look at this. So if we just take the actual end game, if you like, here's a dashboard I've already built for this particular system. So this is at a corporate level as a zone. And you can see I've got a variety of things being displayed, a summary position with different sorts of data that I can switch in. Oops. So I'm currently looking at revenue, but I can switch between revenue and profit and total hours. I have some quite powerful filtering data, so I can select to just look at complete data, projects that are at a status of complete, or all. Or I can select additional filters here. I have project partner, so I may want to see just data for Richard and Rob, and then apply that filter. So this is an example of user filters that I've built as part of this dashboard. What's quite neat with this is that all the reports from, I think, these 4 here are all tied to my filters. So I've only built the filters once and said, I want to share these filters with these particular reports on my dashboard. And that's literally just a case of going and ticking a few boxes and saying, share this filter with this particular item. It's got some very neat drill down capabilities. So here I've got a pie chart of revenue by cost center. If I click on one of the items, I get little pop-up menu saying, well, do you want to drill into a bit more detail here? Well, yes, I do. I'd like to see that broken down by type of project. Okay, well, there's my breakdown by type of project. Well, that's quite a big item there, the shops. Let's see that further broken down by project client. And then we can drill into project client and go down to project if we wanted, just a single project. Again, that comes with no effort. That's just a setting on the report saying, allow me to provide drill down. It's as simple as that. So bearing in mind where we are with time, let's have a quick look at the actual building process to give you a feel for the level of sort of technicality. It's not a technical tool. So I'm going to go to my BI Designer and log in. Now I'm logging in now as one of my report builder users, and I can see my current dashboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new report. So the first thing it says is, what do you want to base this on in terms of the views that we're providing? And I'm going to go for the summary financial data. What we would now do is decide what data we want to actually have on our report. Now there's a great big list, so our views will be very, very deep and very broad. So you'll have lots and lots of options here. But let's say, for example, we'd like to see project finance department, and we'd like to see forecast revenue, and we'd like to see forecast time. Now, as a default, the system doesn't know how you want to aggregate that, so you get a great big list for every single row in the database. This is capped for display purposes. Now, what I want to do is see that summed. So now it's a sum, and I want to sum that piece of data as well. So what we're now seeing is a sum of forecast revenue and forecast time cost based on department. So I might want to refine those a little bit. So let's say I wanted to change the formatting. I don't like that name particularly. It's just forecast revenue, so I can delete that. I don't want 4 decimal places. So you're just really changing settings on that particular item. And as you can see from the menus, there's an awful lot of capability here. But one thing I might want to do, let's just get rid of this extended description as well. So that's our time cost. Is I may want to see a little bit of a comparison. Oops, clicked on the wrong thing there. Yeah. Right. Sorry about that. Let me just go back to that report. Okay, so I'm just, again, edit that. I want to see comparison between my time cost, my main element of cost, and my forecast revenue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the forecast in again, forecast time cost in again, as into the column. I'm going to aggregate it. So I'm going to select that as a sum. And then I'm going to apply some advanced functionality to it. I'm going to say that I actually want to see that column as a percentage against another column. And you can see from the screen here there's an awful lot of extra features, but let's just say I want it as a percentage of revenue. I'm wrestling with my screen real estate now. Oh dear. I don't think it's actually not working at this screen. Oh dear. Oh dear, okay. Sorry about that. So where are we? Let me just give you another quick alternative then. So I'll quickly look up another one. So this time let's just take date. We'll have date as a column. That's actually month, although it's displayed as date. And let's have let's have total revenue, and let's have total cost. There's three fairly obvious things. Let's quickly set the aggregation on them. And so what we have there is really a time basis and a series of figures. So I'm going to translate that now into chart by clicking on the next option along. And this is a bit like a pivot table in Excel. So you can see various boxes you drop files into. So let's say we want on a horizontal axis time. So we drop time into the horizontal axis. And then we'd like to see a graph of revenue and total cost. So it's given me two separate graphs there. It's not really what I want, so I can click on the chart format and scroll down here through a plethora of different report styles, as you'll see, and I want two lines on the same chart. There we go, and it's rebuilt that. So it really is, I mean, that looks a very trivial example because only 3 dimensions, but it is that easy. You can start refining that chart now. For example, the dates, I don't want formatted as dates, I'd have them formatted as months. You can do that. I maybe want to see year-to-date data only, so on the previous screen I'll drag a filter in, and so I only want to see year-to-date data. But all those things are done without programming. They really are about getting to grips with this tool and not about learning any specific skills, really.